G'day everyone, welcome back. Oh, hello. Haven't seen you before. Welcome, my name's Stuart, welcome to the channel. Today I'm dealing with Hydra, one of my enemies. Okay, I wanted to put a summary of the information, of the crucial information that's in this video at the front, so that if you just want the information, you can get it and you can go fix your tanks up. First bit of information you need is the dosage rate, which we get from America, is 0.1 grams per 10 gallons of water that has Planaria or Hydra in the tank. Converting that to metric to make our lives easier, for every litre of water in the tank, you need 0.0026 grams of the active ingredient Fenbendazole. You then calculate the volume of water in your tank that you need to treat in litres, and then you time the number of litres by that figure of 0.0026. That gives you the number of grams that you need. You then take that figure of grams and multiply it by the dosage rate of the product. Now, two products we have here in Australia that I could find off the shelf, the Fenbender 100, the Fenbender 25. If you're using the Fenbender 100, then you take that number of grams and multiply it by 10 mil, and that'll give you the total number of mil you need to add, millilitres. If you're using the Fenbender 25, then you multiply it by 40 mil to get the dosage rate you need. Anyway, back to the longer version of this video. I'm just wrapping up this video. If you have fry, watch to the end. Right, I've dealt with them previously. Video, well, link to that is up there somewhere. Was able to use a non-chemical measure to deal with them, and that worked fine. One I didn't get on camera was when I had Hydra in my Endler tank, and I solved the problem there by I stopped feeding the Endlers, and eventually they ate the Hydra. This time though, yeah, I think we're going to have to, pull out the chemical hammer. Now, I noticed Hydra in one of my Galaxa tanks a while ago. I was feeding them masses of Daphnia to try and get them into condition for breeding. And of course, the Hydra were eating a lot of those Daphnia, so the tank was full of Hydra. Now, I cut back on the food for the Galaxids, and as I've watched the Galaxa tank, the number of Hydra that I can see on the glass and everywhere else has decreased. Unfortunately, and this is how I found the Hydra in my Galaxa tank, is I transferred from some moss from the Galaxa tank to my cherry shrimp tank, and then looking at the cherry shrimp, I went, oh no, Hydra, where'd they come from? And traced it back. I'm now finding Hydra in my Shabunkin fry tank. Now, I came out here day before yesterday, and I noticed that the number of fry that I could see in this tank had gone down. My first thought was ammonia, so I checked the ammonia level. There's a little bit of ammonia in there because there's no filtration in this. It's a green water tank, so I'm trying to get the algae growth up to feed the food that's going to feed the fry. So I checked that, and it was 0.25, 0.5, which is not great, but it's okay. But I've come out this morning, and again I've tested. Ammonia is still in safe, slightly elevated levels, but safe levels. And there's less fry, visibly less fry. I'd be looking here, and there'd be a cloud over there, there'd be a cloud over there, and be all here and around the edges, and see a few swimming around. And I think, like, what's doing it? And then suddenly I thought, oh, maybe it's Hydra. But then how would I know? Because look, how do you detect Hydra, which are kind of white transparent on the edges of a white tank, especially a large white tank? And then I noticed this piece of wood here. If I can get them in focus, I'm hoping in this footage somewhere there'll be a Hydra I've gotten. Oh, there's one. Yeah, in focus, and I can get, so yes, there I reckon is the problem, because the Hydra are big enough to take these eyelashes. Now, a lot of these fish here are possibly getting big enough to the size where they can avoid Hydra, but I don't want to risk it. So we're going to treat this tank. In fact, I'm going to treat every tank that I can find the Hydra in. Now, in America, they recommend using a dog dewormer, a Fenbendazole. And when I was looking around in Australia for Fenbendazole in a dog dewormer, I could only find it in tablet or powder form, and it was hideously expensive. This is for cattle and horses, 100 grams per litre. This is a 1 litre pack, so I've got 100 grams of the active ingredient. That means that for the average hobbyist, this 1 litre is going to last you a really long time, because the dosage rate in freedom units. This is why I find Americans and their use of units so crazy. Dosage is 0.1 gram per gallon. Of course, yeah, they've used grams in the dosage rate per gallon. This is the spreadsheet I used to calculate how much I needed to dose the tanks with. So we start with the 0.1 gram of active ingredient, the fenbendazole, per 10 gallons of tank water. And if you've got masses of hardscape, you might want to do an adjustment for that, but I think there's a bit of fudge factor in there. I don't have a huge amount of hardscape in any of my tanks taking up masses of volume and sort of displacing the water, so I'm just going to go with the measured dimensions. To make our lives easier, we convert that into grams per litre, which works out to be 0.0026 grams per litre. We now need to know how many millilitres of those products we need to add to the tank to get 1 gram of the active ingredient. For the Fenbender 100, it's 10 mil. For the Fenbender 25, it's 40 mil. Next step is you calculate the volume of water in your tanks that you need to treat. Now, I find it easiest to do this in meters. Often when you're doing these sort of calculations, meters is kind of the standard unit, and it makes the conversions simpler. So for my little shrimp tank, it works out to be 0.6 times 0.3 times the water depth of 0.18. That, once you've got the volume in meters cubed, multiply it by 1,000 to give you the volume in litres. Now, once you've got the volume in litres, you then multiply that by the grams per litre figure we had earlier, which is 0.0026. That gives you the total number of grams you need to add to the tank. You then take that number of grams and you multiply it by the dosage rate. For the Fenbender 100, you multiply it by 10 millilitres, gives you the number of mil you need to add. In this case, 0.8. 0.8 can be a bit tricky to measure, whereas multiplying it by 40 mil gives us 3.3, a much easier volume to measure with a 5 milliliter syringe, which you can get from the chemist really easily, really cheap. In fact, you've probably got one from your liquid kids Panadol or something in the cupboard already. However, if you do that, now measuring out such a small amount of the dewormer is a little bit tricky. Now I could do it. I could go and get a 1 mil syringe, but there's an easier way. Now this product, and for the sake of the maths and saving you guys some time, I'm going to dilute this product down to a dosage of 25 milligrams per litre. And the reason I'm doing that is you can buy this in 25 grams per litre. So if you buy the 25 grams per litre instead of the 100 grams per litre, then you don't have to do the calculations for yourself. We're not going to use the inbuilt measuring thing on this, probably highly inaccurate anyway. Now I'm going to pinch one of my son's syringes.
One of the dirty ones off the sink, not one of the new ones.
I don't want a dirty one, I want a clean one.
Well, clean one of the ones on the sink.
Where? Ah, over here. Cool. That's a 10 mil syringe. A 5 mil syringe would be better, but a 10 mil will do. Now this is currently 100 grams per litre. I want to dilute it to 25 grams per litre, which means I need to increase the volume by a factor of 4. If I was going to dilute all of this at once, this is 1 litre, then I would need to add 3 litres. That would mean there'd still be 100 grams of the product, and there'd be 4 litres of fluid. If you simplify that down to grams per litre, then divide both sides by 4, and then you get, so 100 grams divided by 4 is 25 grams per litre. Just open the lid and I'm removing the seal. So it's important to do that first. Having removed the seal, I now put the lid back on and give it a good shake. If you shake it and then remove the seal, then you've got a whole stack of the product that's going to be on the seal. We've drawn up to 10, so we'll put it a bit back, 10 mil, and we stick that into our scientific vessel. Oh, look at it, it's quite thick. I'm just using tap water as the dilution, and I've got a 60 ml syringe here, makes it a bit quicker. Get rid of the air. And we want 30 ml. 10 ml of dewormer, 30 ml of water. Now, it'd be better if this was in a container with a lid because we could give it a good shake. I'm having to resort to stirring it. You want to get a good stir, you want to get a good mix, because if it's not mixed evenly, then you're not going to be able to dose evenly. Now for our shrimp tank, we wanted 3.3 ml. And where I'm gonna add it is right near the sponge filter here, so it'll get distributed the maximum way possible. Now hopefully that's going to kill the Hydra, but nothing else in the tank that I'm concerned of. Apparently it is snail safe, it's shrimp safe, but I've got lots of other things living in here, like the seed shrimp and Daphnia and all that sort of stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. Now for the Shabunkin fry tank, I could probably get away with just using this, like 24.5 rounded up to 25. So let's do that. But one of the things I've been thinking of as I've been doing this is, where did the Hydra in that tank come from? Saturday there was heaps of fry there, but it was Sunday morning that I noticed that sudden drop in the number of fry. So it seems that it was somewhere there where the fry were maybe added the day before or the day before that, or maybe a few days before that, because it took a while for the Hydra number to build up, so they made an impact on the Shabunkin fry. And that got me thinking that, hang on, some of the tanks I've been trying to grow Daphnia in, I've failed. I haven't been able to produce them. But I've been getting a reasonable green water culture. And then I added green water from some of those tanks to some of my other tanks to give the fry food. So suddenly I'm wondering if the reason I've been struggling to produce Daphnia in those green water tanks is because they're loaded with Hydra. And if that's the case, then there's a very real chance that I've spread Hydra throughout all my fry tubs where I've been adding the green water. And that could make sense of why I thought I'd been seeing less numbers of my Medaka fry too. So right now, I'm going to add this to my Shabunkin fry tank. I'm going to have to go through and check everything, which just goes to show how you can suddenly have a big problem without even realizing it. So stay tuned for that. I'll give you updates on how this treatment process went. In particular, like these, I'm not sure if you can see it there, but there's my Daphnia in my fry. Hopefully they'll be okay. It won't kill them. This is one of my green water cultures where I've been pulling stuff from, and you can starting to see mosquito larvae coming in there. But I don't know how I'm going to be able to tell whether there's Hydra in this tank, because they're so hard to see. Like, I'm almost tempted to just dose it, just on the chance. And it also brings home to me that I am really going to have to check everything, because I've been using the same nets, and that could have been spreading the Hydra everywhere. But anyway, here on this tank, this is I've got a reasonable green water bloom here, but I've been struggling to produce Daphnia out of it. I keep on adding them, and then they're just not there when I go back and check later. Not in quantities anyway. So let's see. If we've got Hydra here. Couldn't see any on that in this tank on that airlift, so I'll just turn that back on. Can I see any Hydra here? There's lots of fry here, so it doesn't look like, if there is Hydra here, it's having an impact. And I can't see any Hydra on the walls, and they'd show out really well on this black plastic. Might be an idea if I got something like a plant pot or whatever, and I could throw it in the tanks, and any time in the future I could just come along and lift the plant pot to the surface. That'd be easy to see. But anyway, Medaka, we'll start here. Bit of uneaten food in here, that's not cool. A bit heavy-handed with the feeding. These Medaka are growing really good. I'm guessing there's no Hydra in here, because if there was, I wouldn't have this many fry. They're going brilliantly. There's quite a bit of growth happening, a bit of size variation. This is another goldfish tub, and you can see that the Daphnia culture is going off. There's a few mosquito larvae starting to appear in there, and lots of fry. I can't see any Hydra on the walls there, which is good. So it's been a few days, and I still can't work out where the Hydra came from. I've been checking these pots, nothing. And it doesn't matter that the pots are free floating in just the water. They don't need to be near the sides or anything. Hydra can be, if they choose to be, free swimming. In fact, they can be very mobile. They can move themselves around the tank wall, or just release the wall and go with the current and then reattach. So if you do have a recirculating system, they can disperse through the pipework quite readily, unless you've got filters between each tank or anything. So just be aware of that. I'm going to be checking these, I guess, indicator spots on a regular basis to see if the Hydra turn up, and of course if they do, then I'll treat. But they seem to have gone. Within a very short order, they kind of shrank. Their tentacles sort of shrank in once the dose was in the tank, and now I can't find any Hydra in all the tanks that I've treated that used to have masses of them. Also, all the other things that are in there, like my shrimp, snails, Daphnia, copepods, ostracods, all the other little live things that I knew were in my tanks, all of those seem completely unaffected. They're going great. There's just one small problem. And I was just wrapping up this video, and I was going to make a joke about the Hydra was still out there and we must have ever vigilance and all that. And then I had a bigger problem. The Shibunkin fry that I treated with the Fenbendazole, there's no fry there anymore. And when I say there's no fry, I found 3. I put them in this fry tub here on the drip. This one, oh look, there's one there. Still seems to be swimming around. I'm not sure if you saw that. It's gone underneath the filter just now. Added some green water so that it have some food. The other thing I did was I massively increased the amount of water in the tank. If it is the Fenbendazole, then that will dilute it, and maybe if there's other fry in here, then they'll be saved. It wriggled. I'm sure it wriggled. Alright, I'll take it and put it in the tub. Yeah, it doesn't look healthy. Anyway, it did move. I saw it move. But that brings up the other 2 things it could be. The first one's the least likely. I recently read that there are types of mosquitoes whose babies prey upon fish fry. So these wrigglers are almost the same size as the largest of the fry. Maybe they're responsible. I think that's highly unlikely. The first is that the die-off of the fry wouldn't have been as sudden or as complete, because there's only a small number of wrigglers here. They might have decreased it, but they wouldn't have caused the catastrophic loss that I could see before me. That brings me to the third possible explanation, and the more likely, especially because the 3 fry, other than that 4th one I just found then, they've all been really, really tiny. And what I think is happening is that the fry have gotten to a certain size where they've started to graze on the walls of the tank. And the reason that's relevant is because what used to be kept in these tanks. They used to store fish oil, and that's why I get them cheap, because the fish oil is nasty. It's food safe, but it's horrible. Really hard to clean off, because the residue that's left in the tank, all the volatiles have evaporated off, and you don't have a fish oil, you have a fish congealed fat. And in the tanks where they're aged, it's fine. Like eventually the fat breaks down over time and it disappears and it's all good. But I've had previous problems with larger fish, particularly goldfish, when I've put them in a tank that has had a bit of the residual fat. I've come back the next morning and they've been dead. Which had been odd, because everything else in the tank was alive and healthy. So what I'm thinking is that the fry got to a certain size where they started to graze on the walls of the tank. They started to graze on those remaining fat deposits in this tank, and that is what's killed them. And the smaller fry, the ones that were less likely to be doing that grazing, those are the ones that survived. So, if that's true, then it means that I can't use this tank until it's aged longer, and I definitely can't use the one next to it, because you can see here the fat deposits are still quite, you know, present and bad. So this will remain as a food culture vessel. I've thrown some grass in there to try and get a bit more of a bloom happening. In the meantime though, because we don't know, I wouldn't recommend using the Fenbendazole on tanks where you're keeping fry if they're infected with Planaria or Hydra. In the near future, I will answer this question because I've got 2 tubs of goldfish fry. This tub here started hatching out today. I've seen 2 or 3 fry in here today, and once they get to the free swimming stage, I'll take a counted number of the fry from each, add it to it, and then add an appropriate dosage of the Fenbender and see what happens to the fry. If they all cark it, then we know that Fenbender is not safe to use with fry. If they don't, well then we can assume it was something else. And I'm going to lay the blame on the congealed fat deposits in those tanks. But stay tuned for this video. But stay tuned for that video, because as soon as these fry are free swimming, I'm going to run that test, because I think we need an answer ASAP. In the meantime, I hope you find this material useful. Please take note that I do post my mistakes and disasters as well as my successes, because why would I put you through the same pain that I've put myself through? Much better that you guys learn from my mistakes rather than having to do it yourself. And if that's the kind of thing you appreciate, it'd be great if you could subscribe, come back and watch some more of the stuff as I'm doing it. But even better if you could get onto Patreon, and just $1 a month makes a big difference once a few of you start really joining the crowd. Because my main driving goal when I started working with fish 20 years ago was to do things more sustainably, to show the industry, because there's all this stuff out there the industry isn't using about how they can do things more sustainably, and they're just not doing it because they're stuck in their way. So I thought if I could do it myself, make a commercial success of myself, then I could make an influence on the industry. I can still do that with the ornamental industry, because at the moment here in Australia, just as a starting point, we're importing our fish from overseas, and just in goldfish alone, let alone all the other species, that is a huge environmental impact. So if I can help fix that, and if you can help fix that by helping me, that would be awesome. But anyway, catch you guys on. Bye bye.